welcome to another episode of Jim's Home and Garden. Okay, so I've painted the two side sections. Now I've been doing this sort of in the afternoon, so unfortunately this one's got like a bit of a dull sheen to it on the top here, which was the last bit I painted. Now that's probably because we had a bit of a frost, which is unfortunate, but I'm sure it'll protect the metal nevertheless. So there are a few little bits, as you can see the white coming through here, that I need to touch up. But what I'll do is I'll put the framework back together now, put it up with all the pieces that I've painted so far, and then I'll show you what it looks like. But obviously what I did was painted the side facing this way, and then again sort of turned it upside down and then painted the other side to make sure that I captured every little bit. But the metalwork is galvanised or stainless steel anyway, so really the only bits that I need to focus on are the sort of the parts that have been welded, or where the parts have been joined together and welded. So, but that's basically the framework. So what I'll do now is I'll put it all back together. Now it's all painted, and I can go around and just check any bits that have been missed. I can just quickly touch them up with a bit of paint. Okay, so now the frame is back in place. Just one quick point to make. Obviously now you've got it painted, what you want to do is protect it as much as you can. So I'm just putting little bits of wood under there, just to protect the paint from being scratched by the bricks. And I was really careful painting this, but I can still see little bits. You can see that there are bits that I've missed. So obviously now I've got it all up. I've obviously painted the majority of it. But what I'll do is I'll go around with the paint whilst I'm doing the other bits, and just touch up these little bits that haven't been quite had a full coat. But there are little bits here and there I've noticed. So I'll just go around and just touch those up. There's a little bit there that's not been coated. So, but basically that's all painted now. So what I need to do is finish off the middle hoop and the end hoop, get them back on, and then I'll be able to put all the cables on. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so I've just finished the first cable. So as you can see, the first cable goes through the piece of part that we've welded into the cross member, and then obviously this is the bolt that we cut off. So then the cable goes all the way along like that through the middle pipe. That just basically passes through that pipe there, and it comes all the way along to the door end. Sorry about the wind. And then basically I've just got a piece of stud in about 7 inches long, or 15 centimetres. 18 centimetres long. I've welded that on in exactly the same way there to the cable, and all I've done basically, that's just M6, and then I'll just basically run a nut on there, and basically what I can do is obviously the tighter I put that nut on there, the tighter the cable will be. So all I need to do now, just to finish that off, is put a little bit of primer paint on over that welded joint there, and obviously the same at the other end. This is obviously where I fetched off the sort of galvanised plating. So obviously the cable's staying still, so that'll be okay, but the weld itself, mild steel. Sorry if there's a bit of wind noise, but I'll just basically paint over this bit here as soon as I've got them all finished, with some primer, then a bit of gloss, and then that'll be the cables finished. So all I need to do now is basically repeat that another 3 times. Obviously the next cable will be going through up here, and then obviously the same on the other side. So I'll just get that done and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's the final and fourth cabling. So as you can see, all of the cables are running along. I don't know if you can see that. So I've got 4 cables, 2 on each side, and that's basically going to serve to hold the net back in place, so it's not kind of sagging in between the poles. So all of those are welded up. So all I need to do now is just put some as I say, just put some paint on there just to protect the ends where I've welded it. The rest of it is kind of stainless steel, so that'll be okay. So I'll just put some paint on that. That's finished. So all I need to do now is get the door sorted out. Okay, so onto the door. Basically, all I've done is gone round the frame. I don't know if you can see, every 6 inches I've drilled a hole, and obviously there's going to be a cable tie running through there. So what I've done is on both sides I've countersunk the hole so that there's no rough edges or sharp right angle edges, which is going to potentially cut through the cable tie. Now the door, which is this is part of, basically what I've done is I've welded 2 pieces together because they weren't quite long enough. So basically what I'm going to do now is I've laid the frame down on the floor, made sure it's all level. So I've got these pieces of wood, one in the corner and one at each edge. And basically what I've done is I've started to put effectively the door inside the frame. And obviously we're looking at the inside of the tunnel at the moment, obviously. So this side under here is the outside face. And what I'm going to do is basically cut another strip of metal to run from there to there to make the bottom of the door, and then a piece to go from there to there to make the top edge of the door. And what I'm going to do is, rather than weld in like a 45-degree angle, what I'm going to do is, in fact no, I'll cut a 45-degree angle on there, and I'll actually make a 45-degree angle at each of the corners to weld them together. And as soon as I've done that, what I'll do then is weld those together. Now what I'm going to need to do is in the middle put like a strengthening bar. So what I'm planning to do is put across in the middle a piece of conduit. The reason I'm going to put conduit in is I'm going to use that as the bolt to fasten the door shut. So there'll be a piece of conduit running from sort of the middle across like that to that side, and then inside that there'll be a metal bar which will basically move backwards and forwards into a hole on the side there to lock the door shut. So obviously there's going to be a reasonable amount of weight in the door, so I don't want it to sort of sag over here. So what I'm going to do is put some cross pieces in to keep it square, and obviously I'll weld those in whilst it's fat like this, so it'll all be nice and solid. So basically all I'm going to do is weld the top in, piece across there across the top, piece across the bottom there to make the door square, and then sort of the outer edge of the door there's going to be a piece of conduit running across the middle for the bolt going into the far side there. And then what I'm going to do is make like a cross piece going along there and a cross piece going along there, basically to make like an A shape, if you like, to keep the door from bowing as it gets older. So I'll just weld all of that together now, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's welded together. Okay, so this is going to be the bottom piece. So all I've basically done is generated the 45-degree angle there, then obviously the side piece will sort of come in like that with the same kind of angle, so that'll make the corner. So the easiest way of making a 45-degree line like that is basically get another piece, this is just a scrap end, put that on at perpendicular to it like that, draw both sides of it, then all you've got to do is just join the corners from there to there, and you can guarantee that's a 45-degree angle. Obviously that just goes straight down. So I'll cut that off now, down there to make the bottom. I'll do the same at the other end, and then I'll put it all together and show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's the door welded up, and I don't know if you can see, but I've got this really hot, I don't know if you can see the actual weld, but as you can see that's sunk. Basically what that means is both this piece of metal here and this piece of metal here have got that hot that they've actually melted. So this is a really strong weld. Obviously I want this to be really strong, but just show you now, if I lift up, this is obviously the door, this is the actual door, obviously that's the frame on the left on the floor. You can actually twist this like that, so obviously there's a reasonable amount of give it. Now I know it's going to be hinged at one side anyway, but I'm concerned that this type of action is going to cause the door to break eventually. So I need to stiffen it up a little bit. So as I say, I'm going to be putting these sort of cross pieces in, and hopefully that will make it a little bit more rigid than it is. But basically what I'm going to do now is effectively connect this door frame, this door outer edge bit onto the actual frame. Now we're actually looking at the inside face of it here, so the way I want it to work is I want this side here to be hinged, so the door will open like that way if you like, so it'll go into the, so basically that'll hinge that way. So what I'm going to do is basically just weld 2 hinges on this face, one around kind of here and one kind of around there at the bottom. Now all I'm going to do is use bog standard hinges. They're the hinges, and basically what I'm going to do is weld the hinge in to both pieces of the steel, sort of in there if you like. So what I'm going to do is turn the whole thing up the other way and then weld those in. So basically this is going to jot out probably about that much if you like. So as the door opens, it'll open away from the frame. Now ideally, to be honest with you, I could do with a 3rd hinge to go in the middle. So what I might do is actually, before I put these in, I might go out and purchase another hinge, because what I could do with really is it being hinged at the bottom, at the top, and then also in the middle here, because I'm not sure if 2 hinges are going to be sufficient. But anyway, now to put the net on, what I'm going to do is actually drift out the central pin out of the hinge. So what I'm going to do is basically knock out the pin out the middle, so I can separate the door from its frame later as well. So I need to modify these hinges slightly before they get welded in. But what I may well do is go out and purchase another hinge. Those are just 2 that I had in the garage. So that's basically the door frame. Obviously I need to put in these pieces to strengthen it a little bit and stiffen it up. Obviously, you know, it hasn't got to be overly strong, but I want to get it, you know, obviously I don't want to take it over the allotment and then to find it'll break over there. It won't break in the foreseeable future, but it could potentially break in the future, and obviously I want this to last me as long as possible. But that's basically the door frame. So all I need to do now is put in these bits as I explained. There's going to be okay. So I'm just going to weld the 1st hinge at the top of the frame. I've got the frame upright because that's the easiest way to do it. And basically what I'm going to do is I've just put some more grips on there, just hold it in place, and I'm going to drill through on each of the hinges. I'm going to put through 2 M6 bolts. And I'm going to weld it on this side so it's flush, so when the hinge closes there's no bolt there to sort of foul it basically. So what I'm going to do is now drill through, whilst it's being held in place, drill a hole through the top there and a hole in the bottom, and then I'll put some studding through, weld it at the top and at the bottom onto the hinge. Then I can just put a nut at the back to hold it on when it's in place. So I'll just do that now and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so as you can see I've drilled through the top and the bottom hole. Now on the other side, basically what we're going to do is I've got some bolts, because all it is a length of studding. I'll just put a nut on there to space it. So these will go through the hole on the other side like that. Sort of wiggle it through like that. So that'll, as it'll end up like that on each of the hinges. So I'm going to do this on all. I'm basically going to put 4 hinges going down the door. So they'll end up with bolts running through the side like that. So I'll be able to bolt the door on, put the bolts through like this, and then just tighten up the nut which is there now to hold the door in place. And obviously what I'm going to do on this side now, I don't know if you can see that, but you can just see the edge of the bolt now. What I'm going to do now is weld round the top of that bit of studding to weld those bits of bolt or those bits of studding onto the hinge, so they become part of the hinge. So what I'll do is I'll weld those on now, take it off, clean it up, and I'll just show you what it looks like afterwards as soon as I bolt them. But basically that's all I'm doing to align all the bolts up. So I'll weld that on now, take it off, and I'll show you what it looks like and how it'll fit on after. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's welded. Basically I've got the bolts running through now, so I'll be able to take off the mould grips. And basically what we've got now is the bolts holding it in place, and as you can see the hinge will actually shut on that as it is, but this is going to be welded to the door this side. So what I want to do is make that nice and flush. So all I've got to do now is just round here is take out these nuts, and then this will obviously come off, clean it up, and I can put it back on. So I'll do that now and show you what it looks like. Okay, so there's the hinge, and I've sanded that right down. So just to give you a profile, you can see I've just left, I don't know, less than a millimetre really, but I don't want to take that all the way down because obviously I'll be taking the strength out if I'm not careful. So I've just sanded that down. And what I've done is I've also stretched these two holes out to 7mm, so that when it goes in, it'll go in nice and easy. And I've also countersunk both sides, obviously this side and also the other side, so there's no sort of sharp edges. So as you can see, that hinge now will just nicely fit in there. So all I've got to do is on the back here, just put the two nuts there, and that's that hinge in place. Now what I'll do then is I'll put in exactly the same way. I'll put a hinge somewhere here, somewhere there, and then one at the bottom. Then what I'll be able to do is put the door into its frame, and I'll be able to weld the door to the other side of the hinge. And then obviously I can take the door out just by basically taking the nuts off, and then the hinges will come out with the door. So basically these will end up, this side here will end up being welded to the door like that. And then so on the side of the door I'll just have a series of these, and then they'll line up with these holes, push it through, then I'll actually bolt the door on. The reason I'm doing this, just to explain, this is the outside edge here, so the mesh is going to come round here, and then it's going to wrap around here, and then through these holes here that we drilled before, it's going to be cable tied onto there, all the way down. So the net's going to come round here like that, and then be cable tied onto there. On the door, in exactly the same way, the net's going to come along. It's going to go round the hinges. It's also going to come onto this face here, and through exactly the same holes here, I'll cable tie the net to this post. So basically, these hinges will end up inside the net. On the other side, obviously the net will be attached to the door, and at the top and at the bottom obviously will be attached to the door. But this side here, where it hinges, to make sure that there's no gap in the net between the wall, if you like, and the door, I'm going to tie the net, both the wall piece of net and the door piece of net, to this post here, the wall post. So there's no gaps. When I put the net on, all of this will become a lot clearer, but that's basically why I'm doing the hinges in this way. Also, I want to be able to take the door on and off just in case there's a problem, and also set the door, so if the door sags in any way, I can always take the door off, stretch these holes one way or the other, and then I can obviously reset the door, put it back on, and then away we go again. So this enables me, rather than welding the door and the frame to these hinges, by bolting one side like this, even though it's a little bit more complicated now, it enables me to have some adjustment in the door later on should I need it. Okay, so that's the door in place. Basically what I've done is I've put a little piece of metal in there just to space it off. So we've got the hinge at the top, there's a hinge in the middle, and I don't know if you can see, but that's coming out. That'll be pulled in a moment. But the hinge in the top and the bottom are right, so they're all in. Obviously they're just bolted in at the back here, like I explained, there and there. And then what I've done is just to hold the whole frame straight and everything. What I've done is I've just put some space in there. I've actually got some old grinding discs in there. That gives me just about the right spacing, with some more grips at the back. And then I've done the same at the bottom, just with a spare bit of metal just to hold that off the frame, so I know that it's all square. Now what I'll do now is I'll weld in the top hinge along that face there, and then I'll weld in the bottom one exactly the same. As soon as I've got those two in, I can then pull this in straight and weld the middle hinge, and then the door will be effectively fastened to the frame. So I'll just do that now and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so there's the hinge welded. I've welded it all the way around the end. Now obviously what I need to do now is grind that back so it's nice and flush. So I've got the hinge bolted on that side, which is the frame, and then welded on this side to the actual door itself. Also I've got the one in the middle there, and then there's the one at the bottom just the same as the one at the top. So now, just put the light out of the way. Now that all the hinges are welded in place, and it's basically, I can shut the door like that, and it'll shut. And obviously what I've got is a sort of reasonably low clearance. Now I've got enough clearance in there to get the net through. Obviously what's going to happen is the net's going to go through and then obviously tie onto these bits here, so there's enough clearance there. There's enough clearance around the top, and at the bottom I've got probably around probably about 8 millimeters of clearance. The largest amount of clearance is obviously here at this side where the hinges are, but that's basically the door in place. Now what I need to do obviously is make the catch pitch, which will go along in the middle, which is going to be a piece of conduit, and then that's going to have a bolt inside it which will run into here. And then obviously this door is a little bit flappy still, so what I'm going to do is at the bottom and at the top, what I'm going to do is put like a plate of metal that comes out, so basically when it's shut it'll you know, sort of hold it flat against the frame, and then obviously when it's shut it'll be all in exactly where it should be. So I'm not going to put too much metal in the door, obviously I don't want to make it too heavy. I've obviously got to you know, consider how much weight there is in this. So I'm going to have this central piece going along here, and I'm going to use some of this thin pipe just to make some strengthening bits at the corner. But that's effectively the door completed now, apart from this middle bit. So what I'll do is I'll sand the hinges down where the welds are. I'll just wait for that to cool, sand that down, and then I can put this middle bit in and get the door finished. Okay, so I'm just putting the central bar into the middle of the door now. This is going to basically go from the hinge over there over to this side, and actually inside this is also going to contain the locking mechanism for the basically for the door, to stop the door from opening. So basically what I've done is I've just drilled two holes through there. So I've got one little hole there, one little hole there, and basically what I'm going to do is make like a bolt. So this is just a piece of stainless pipe that's going to fit inside this pipe here. And what I'm going to do is extend these holes out slightly to about 8 mil, both of them. Then I'm going to cut between the two holes, forming basically like a groove going between these two holes. And then through the hole I'm going to weld onto this bar, like a bar coming out, and then basically what I'll be able to do is by moving that backwards and forwards, that'll push this in and out. And there's going to be a hole in here which that'll pass through, and then another hole in the framework. So basically what I can do is shut it, push it across, and then the bolt will run through there into there, basically locking that shut. So what I'll do is I'll just drill out these holes and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so as you can see I've drilled the holes out now, and they're I think they're probably about 11 mil. Just quickly measure. Yeah, they're about 11 mil holes. So that's going to go. This is obviously the bolt part, if you like. That's going to fit inside there, and as you can see it through the holes. So obviously as soon as I cut that out, I'll be able to get through to weld onto it. Now that's nice and loose in there. Obviously you don't want it too tight, but where it will be tight is where it passes through the door, and this is the hole here. So the bolt will basically be passing through backwards and forwards through that hole there, and it'll lock into this hole here. Now this hole here I've made larger. That's probably more like 14 mil. So there's plenty of, you know, sort of plenty of give in there. But there it's reasonably tight, but not that tight that it won't pass through easy. Now, to measure the centre of the hole there, all I did was got a bit of pipe. This is just an offcut. Then if you hold it up against the side there, which is where the pipe will be, as you can see. My hand's in the light, but you can see that's how I've basically found the centre of the hole. So just a quick tip for you: just cut off a little bit of pipe, then you'll be able to see where the pipe sits. So obviously this pipe here, I'll quickly take it out. That's going to sit in the door, kind of like that, and then the bolt will go into the pipe down that hole there, and I'll be able to sort of shuttle it up and down as soon as I've cut this groove out. So I'll now cut the groove out of here, and all I'm going to do is basically cut up those two holes. So sorry, those two lines there, joining the two holes together. Now this is where it's well worth your while saving your small cutting discs, because when you're cutting into pipe like this, the smaller ones will basically cut into the pipe, but not, you know, too far down, so you'll be able to get right up to the edge. So what I'll be doing is, at the moment I've got a full disc in there, I'll cut the majority of the lines out, and then as soon as I've cut that out, what I'll do is I'll then go put one of these smaller discs into the cutter, and I'll be able to get right up to the edge of that hole there and there, to make a nice neat edge. So I'll just do that now. Okay, so I'm almost ready to assemble it. So there's the groove cut out. All I did basically with the angle grinder, just cut between the two holes along those purple lines and took out the piece out of there. What I've done here is just bent a bit of that pipe round by hand, just basically just folding it over on itself, and I've cut that out. That's going to form the handle, so then the bolt will go up inside the pipe like that, and then I'm going to weld this onto the pipe on the inside there. Then as I move that backwards and forwards, I'm just going to pull that backwards and forwards like that, and then that will pass through that hole there, and then in and out of that hole there to sort of hold it shut. Now obviously what I've done is I've cleaned the metal back here and there, which is where it's going to be welded. Likewise on the other side, that's nice and clean now, ready to weld. So what I'll do first of all is just put that bit of pipe in like that, and then I'll weld this on. So I'll show you me doing that first. So that's ready to sort of slide backwards and forwards like that. And then what you can do, I'm not going to bother doing this, but what you could do is you could put like 2 further grooves at the bottom, and then what you could do is as that goes down, it should turn and lock shut. I don't think I'm going to bother doing that. I'm just going to leave mine like that, so you can just basically pull it backwards and forwards. But what you could do is cut another 2 little grooves out there to correspond with that, so it would go across and then drop down, and then it would basically lock it shut. Actually, I might just do that whilst it's no, I'll leave it as it is, because that's most certainly going to stay shut anyway. So I'll just weld this on now, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so there's the bolt welded on. As you can see, I've welded that in. It's still a little bit warm, so but as you can see, that will go backwards and forwards like that. Now I've left plenty on there, so what I'm going to do is obviously that's open in that position. So what I'll do is I'll put it all together, weld this into here now, and then as soon as I've welded it in place, so I know exactly where the edge of the door is, I can just quickly cut that off there, basically just by putting the angle grinder through here. Cut off the excess, and then I know when that goes through it'll have sort of 1.5 inches or so sticking into the door frame. So I'll weld this on now, and then I'll cut that off after it's welded on, and I'll be able to show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's the bolt in position. So what I've done, welded it at the end there. At the end there, obviously I need to clean those welds up a little bit. I'll just go on the other side. Welded it round there, onto the side, and then exactly the same here. Welded it all round. I don't know if you can see okay. And now the bolt obviously comes through there. If I pull the handle out, that'll release the bolt, releasing the door. As you can see, that jots out very slightly. Obviously you want that to jot out slightly so it doesn't fall out of the hole which is actually in the door frame, as it were. So all I need to do now is shut that like that, push that across, and then that'll hold the door nice and shut. Now all I need to do now is just to stop the door from moving back. As you can see, there's a slight amount at the top and at the bottom. What I need to do now is just weld a piece of something like that, which is just the bit that's cut off. Weld that in on the corner, sort of like that, so it holds it in. So I'll do that at the top and at the bottom, so there'll be a piece welded in, sort of like that, so the corner will catch it as it shuts, just to secure it. So it'll be, if you imagine, that'll hold that bit like that, the bit at the back I've just explained, and then same at the bottom. Then obviously this bolt here will just catch it like that. Now, the one thing that I have thought of, water could potentially get in this pipe here, and obviously that's going to rust it through. So what I've done is I've not welded underneath the bottom there, so water's able to get out. Likewise on that side, but what I'll do is I'll just drill up from underneath there a little teeny hole, just so if any water gets in here it can drain out. But that's effectively the bolt, so obviously you can open it up like that, and just to shut it, just move it backwards and forwards. So just a quick note on the other end, in exactly the same way as the other one, I've put a bar on there to keep that perfectly square. On the other side there's another one in exactly the same way, been welded in across there to keep that square. So all I need to do now for the door is basically weld some pieces in, sort of across up like that, likewise at the bottom, just to keep the door absolutely square. And then all I need to do then is just paint the door frame and door, get it all painted up, and then I can put this on the rest of the frame, and then we're all ready to go. That's all the metalwork done. So I hope this episode has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Little Garden.